So I gotta do a Crawford versus Canelo video. I'm actually very torn about this fight. They've been talking about this fight for years. I remember when they first, way before the fight was even official or announced, and they were talking about it, and I was kind of like, this is silly, you know what I mean? And it the thing is this too with this fight. Canelo's last couple of opponents or whatever, what was his name, Yildirim or whatever. There's been a couple of people where it's he fought the smaller Charlo brother. I can't even tell. Oh, the other guy that ran around Skull, whatever his name was. Canelo has not been fighting the best people out. Now, I think a couple of different things about this. Do I think Canelo's earned that right? I do. You know what I mean? It's his life, is his career. He doesn't owe anybody anything, and I understand. Oh, we pay him and we pay his salary and we buy his fights and shit. Well, don't buy his fights if you don't like who he's fighting. I don't. You know what I'm saying? I think Canelo is a legend. I think he's an all-time great. But that being said, when we're talking about legacy and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, he's not helping his legacy these past 5 fights or whatever it is. He may not be concerned with that. You know what I'm saying? He may be more concerned with, listen, I beat the best guys from this time to this time, and now I'm kind of going to fight whoever is going to get me the most money. You know, if I can fight a guy like Skull or a guy like this, and I'm going to get paid, $25 million to get an easy win, I think that's the route he's going. I think he's been avoiding Benavidez for quite some time. I think it's absolutely hilarious that you keep saying to Benavidez, who did you beat? But then you go and fight other guys who haven't. I mean, who the fucking Skull beat? He beat better people than Benavidez? Like, I don't know. The irony, the hypocrisy, all that type of shit, it's kind of ridiculous. Again, that being said, listen, if that's what, it's Canelo's career, it's his health, it's his legacy. If he wants to continue on taking these easier fights for bigger paydays, that's fine. He can keep doing that. He can do that for another 10 years if he wants to. And maybe not have a real threat posed to him at all. It's not going to help his legacy, but it's his life and it's his health and it's his legacy. So if that's what he wants to do, he has every right to do it. That being said, like I said, this isn't doing any favors for his legacy. So if Canelo's looking to be one of the greatest of all time, and you're talking like you're one of the greatest of all time, I'm sorry, buddy, but if you're going to talk like that, then yeah, you need to continue to fight the top guys. You can't just be, cherry picking guys and saying I'm one of the greatest of all time. I know Mayweather did it at the end of his career, but Mayweather never avoided anybody like the plague the way that Canelo did with Benavidez. Yeah, we had the Pacquiao situation, but Freddie Roach and Pacquiao have both verbally admitted on camera that it was their fault that the fight didn't happen sooner. So, it's like there really wasn't much that Mayweather could do with it at that point, and still he made the fight happen, right? So, to me, it's just different, because at the end, when Mayweather was fighting Berto and he was fighting Conor McGregor and shit like that, right? It was kind of one of those things where there wasn't anybody really left for him to fight. The only people that you could say that you wanted Floyd to fight were like some new up-and-coming guys that were, making noise. And again, it's a lose-lose situation, because if he loses to one of those guys, it's probably only because he's older and the guy's younger or the guy's bigger or whatever the case is, not necessarily because he's better. And if he wins, you're going to say the same thing that you said when he beat Canelo. Like, oh, the guy was too young, he wasn't ready, blah, blah, blah. It's just funny because, Pacquiao was too old when Mayweather fought him. Meanwhile, Mayweather was older, and there's always these constant double standards of this guy's too old, this guy's too young, but this guy's not too old, and this guy's not too young. So obviously at that point, you just got to ignore the white noise and understand that people are just going to fucking talk. I say all that to say this. I think Canelo's put himself in another lose-lose situation, right? Like, you got a guy who started his career at, I believe it was 130 or 135. Moves up, 140, unifies, moves up to 47, demolishes fucking Spence, who was undefeated and killing everybody at that time at that weight, demolishes him, moves up again, beats Madrimov, who, listen, I understand Crawford did not look his best in that fight. I agree to that. We'll see over time whether that was more like a weight issue or more of a specific fighter issue where Madrimov winds up being one of these like Golovkin type guys, like these Eastern European super, super, super difficult to beat type guys. And it's like, you know what? If he moved up to whatever, his fourth weight class and beat a guy like that, I mean, the fact that he did that is amazing enough. Like, he might not have looked amazing doing it, but the fact that he accomplished that is amazing enough. We really don't know that yet. We're going to have to wait and see how the rest of Madrimov's career plays out to really... and you know what? We'll probably find out before that, right? Because in September, if Bud gets his fucking clock clean by Canelo, then we know that the weight was probably an issue and Bud shouldn't really be going past 147 or 154 or something like that. Again, Bud's getting older, so I don't see him having many more fights anyway, but I'm just kind of speaking on what's going on. But yeah, I feel like Canelo's kind of in another one. Like, if Canelo wins this fight, I just don't think it does anything for him. We're all going to write it off to him being too big for Bud, right? And if Bud wins this fight, I mean, how bad does that look on Canelo, bro? Like, your past 5 fights, you're cherry picking fucking people who were like, come on, man, seriously? You're avoiding Benavidez. All of a sudden, here comes Bud Crawford, gonna fucking jump up to whatever it is, his 5th or 6th weight class, skipping an entire weight class in the process and going right for a pound-for-pound king. I mean, if he pulls this off, yeah, it's going to be an incredible feat for him, but it's going to make Canelo look really bad. Because it's going to make the last 5 years of Canelo's career look kind of like a joke and like he was only winning fights because he's cherry-picking people. Because once a good fighter jumped up 2 weight classes and skipped a weight class and fucking schooled him, you know what I mean? If Crawford does to Canelo what Mayweather did to him, it's going to look bad. As far as who's actually going to win this fight, I'm going to have to try to keep this as short as possible because I'm so torn on this that I could talk all day about it. I think Bud is the better athlete. I think Bud is probably the better boxer. That being said, Canelo is obviously a great fighter. And I know people keep talking about, like, well, Bud walks around at 180 and Canelo walks around at 190, so there's not really that much of a size difference. But there is, bro. There is, because Canelo could have never cut down to 135 pounds. Canelo turned pro when he was 15 years old and was already struggling to make 147. So to sit here and act like there's not a size difference between these guys is just fucking retarded. We're talking about a guy who's fighting up at 168 and another guy who hit, what was it, his 4th weight class at 154. Now he's skipping his 5th weight class and going to his 6th weight class. Please, let's stop trying to act like because they're the same height or because they walk around somewhere near the same weight that they're the same size. They're not, bro. Canelo's a bigger guy, and it is what it is. Now, does that mean Canelo is going to win the fight? No, not necessarily. But here's kind of the problem for me. People keep drawing these comparisons to the Mayweather fight, and I want to be clear when I say this. In no way, shape, or form am I trying to diminish what Floyd did, because what Floyd did was amazing. But I just don't really think we can compare these two things. So, Mayweather had already fought at 154 pounds prior to fighting Canelo, okay? So not only was it not Mayweather's first fight at that weight class, but Mayweather also didn't skip 147, right? Mayweather didn't go from 140 right to 154 to fight a pound-for-pound king. He went to a weight class that he was already at and fought an up-and-coming star, not necessarily a pound-for-pound king. On top of that, they fought at 154, but Canelo actually, well, they both had a weigh-in at 152, but that's not a problem for Mayweather because he's typically fighting at 147. Mayweather walks around at like 150, 155. So weighing in at 152 wasn't a problem for Mayweather. Weighing in at 152 was probably a little bit of a problem for Canelo. I think if Canelo was allowed to weigh 154, Mayweather would have lit him up anyway, so that's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm just trying to point out how I just don't really think it's fair to make these comparisons. Number one, Bud and Mayweather are two different fighters. Is Bud up there as far as ring IQ and talent level? I think he's up there. But I don't think he has the same hand speed as Floyd. I don't think whatever hand speed advantage he has over Canelo, he's not going to be the same speed at 68 that he was at 47 or anything like that. He's not. We know this. No, but he's going to have more pop. Not really, because there's a sweet spot, right? I'm not saying 135 is the sweet spot. Bud may hit harder at 47 or 40 than he hits at 35, because there is a sweet spot, and there is a point where it's like, okay, well, you need to cut weight and fight some smaller guys, but you also need to not, like, really drain yourself to keep your power at full force, right? So maybe 147 might be that sweet spot for Bud. Now we're going to 168, bro. The guys are used to getting hit by bigger punchers. The guys have better chins. They have more mass behind them. It's all this type of stuff. So I don't think the power is going to translate at 68 the way that it does at 35, 40, 47 for Bud. Now, that being said, just because his power isn't the same at 68 doesn't mean he won't have power at 68. But you're fighting Canelo. Canelo's never been dropped. Canelo's been hurt like once his entire career. I believe that was when he weighed 147 or 154, fighting against Cotto's brother. He wasn't badly hurt to the point where he was like stumbling and wobbling around the ring, but he got rocked. I mean, he's eating punches at 68 from Golovkin, from Danny Jacobs, you know, big punchers and stuff. You cannot convince me that Bud's going to hurt this guy. I don't buy it. Now, that being said, here's another problem that I think presents itself. If Floyd wasn't able to hit Canelo hard enough to make Canelo think twice about what he was doing, at some point in the second half of that fight, Canelo would have just bailed on all tactics, all boxing IQ, all anything, and would have just bum rushed Floyd, and whatever happened, happened. Floyd hits hard enough, and he's done this to everybody. He did it to Pacquiao. He did it to Canelo. He's done it to people where people that are trying to bum rush him, he eventually makes them stop. They don't do that for all 12 rounds, and there's a reason why. And I remember noticing this right away in the Pacquiao fight. Pacquiao's a volume puncher. He's a combination puncher that attacks in flurries, and I think he threw like 40-something punches in the first round of the Floyd fight. I immediately was like, this fight's over. This fight is over. Mayweather is right away taking away this guy's best assets and this guy's best chance to win the fight. And you have to understand, psychologically, it's very difficult when you're having a very hard time hitting somebody, right? So you start pressing a little more and throwing combinations and working in some feints, and you start to notice that the harder you try, you're still not landing any more punches, but now you're getting hit with shots in return. So the more punches you throw, the more you're getting hit. You're not getting hit by a knockout fighter who's putting you unconscious with one counterpunch, but you are getting hit hard enough by a guy that's rocking you just enough to keep you honest and make you recognize, hey, let me chill out a second here, because if I do that again, like, and I get hit with another couple of these before this round ends, like, I might be in trouble. So let me dial it back a little bit. Let me try to figure out a more productive way to try to land my punches and land my combinations. And he slows you down, and he makes you start thinking. And then you can't find that way. And then you start pressing on the gas a little bit, and then you pay a price again, because now you're making mistakes, and he's catching you, and he's making you pay. And now you're thinking again, and now you're... And he keeps you in control and allows himself the time that he needs to start breaking you down and figuring you out and giving himself the time to think, while not allowing you to recklessly just press him, because if you do, you're going to pay a price. Are you going to go unconscious from one shot? Probably not. But you're paying enough of a price that you don't want to keep giving that up and giving that up and giving that up, because you know eventually you will go out. So I'm not sure at 168 pounds, with the chin that Canelo has, I'm not sure that Bud's going to be able to keep him honest. And I think Billy Joe Saunders had this problem where he was boxing well, he was doing good, he was having some success. But in the second half of the fight, Canelo just got to a point where he was like, fuck this, bro. Like, I'm not letting you run around like this anymore. I'm cutting the ring off, and I'm going to fucking punish you. kind of the reverse of what we were just talking about, right? Keep throwing them combinations. Keep letting you have. I'm going to catch you with one of these, bro, and you're going to be in fucking trouble when I do. And he was. He broke his fucking eye socket in the end of the fight, right? I just don't know. Listen, I want to be clear about this. I think Bud is going to dominate this fight early. And I think even if Bud winds up getting stopped, I think he's going to be comfortably ahead at the time that he winds up getting stopped. I just don't know that Bud is going to have the power or the tools at 168 pounds to keep Canelo off of him when Canelo realizes I'm down and I have to press and hurt this guy. I just don't know that Bud's going to be able to keep him off of him. And again, if anything I'm saying is wrong here, I want to be clear. The only reason I'm saying this stuff is because of the giant weight gap. Again, not that Canelo's a way bigger guy than Crawford, but this is a big weight jump, bro. It's not just as simple as whose, bone structure is bigger or who's an inch taller or who this or who that. These are guys that are just built different, bro, and have been fighting at different weight classes their entire career. The pretty much the lowest weight class Canelo's ever been at was the highest weight class Crawford's ever been at, and he seemed to struggle a little bit at that weight. So I think there's a lot of things to be said here, and I think if Crawford can keep Canelo honest and can keep him off of him, then yeah, I think Crawford's going to, I don't know if I want to say cruise, but I think Crawford's going to go to a pretty, I don't know if I'm using the wrong wording here, but one-sided kind of clear unanimous decision type fight, because I do think Bud has the talent to do that. I do. I just don't know that he's going to be able to keep Canelo off of him. And here's kind of the number one red flag for me is, and I don't know how many people are really acknowledging this. I think Mayweather had a lot better of a chin than Crawford does. And I think Mayweather had better defense. So we have a scenario here where Mayweather with the better defense, it's like, okay, well, that might lead you to believe that Bud may get hit a little more often than Mayweather, right? Well, how many clean punches did Canelo really land on Mayweather throughout the fight? I don't know. Let's say 5, right? I'm sure he landed 25, 30 jabs. I'm sure he landed some decent touches to the body, some decent touches upstairs, shit like that. But how many really good, solid shots did Canelo really hit Mayweather with in that fight? I don't think more than 5. So let's say with Bud that number, or let's say Canelo landed 3 really good ones against Mayweather. Let's say he lands 7 really good ones against Bud, because Bud's not quite as elusive as Mayweather, not as high of a tier of elite defense as Mayweather. And again, remember, jumping 2 weight classes to his 6th weight class. So again, the same movement, the speed, he's not going to feel the same in there. Again, that's not to say he can't get it done, but there's a lot of different factors to keep in mind here when we're kind of comparing the Mayweather-Canelo fight and the Bud-Canelo fight. So now we're going from Canelo landing 3 solid punches to Canelo landing 7 solid punches. On top of that, I don't think Bud has as good of a chin as Mayweather. That being said, the weight difference, the jump in 2 weight classes, the this, the that, right? Will Bud really be able to take 7 really good, clean shots from Canelo? I'm not sure that he will, man. Again, listen, at 135, I understand Bud is probably drained. He can get rocked easier. But you're also not getting hit by guys that are hitting as hard as Canelo, right? So that's kind of a trade-off. You're going to be more hydrated and not as drained, but you're going to be getting hit by a bigger, stronger guy. So I feel like those kind of even each other out to a certain extent, hypothetically speaking. Again, on top of that, like I said, I just, there's a sweet spot, right? Bud's chin might be best at 147, where he's not really drained, but he's also not fighting guys that are way bigger than him. That might be the sweet spot for his chin. That might be the sweet spot for his power. 154, maybe pushing it. 160 might be too much. 168 might be a death sentence. We don't know. We're up to about 20 minutes on this video. I don't want to ramble on too much here. I haven't really given you guys my pick. At the end of the day, I think there's just a couple of things that just don't play into Bud's favor here. And what I kind of see happening in this fight, I see this fight going similar to the Billy Joe Saunders fight. A little bit different, but similar in kind of the way it starts and the way it ends. Or maybe the Kovalev fight, which I don't think the style matchup is similar in any way. But again, talking about the start and the result. I can see Canelo looking like he almost doesn't belong in the ring with Bud for the first, 2 to 4 rounds. I can see towards the middle where we start noticing, is Bud slowing down a little bit here? Hey, is Canelo chipping away and maybe breaking him down like he's losing the rounds? But is he starting to catch up? I think right before the championship rounds, it's going to start getting tough for Bud. I think right after in that last quarter or so of the fight, last third or so of the fight, 9, 10, 11, 12. Again, we have to keep Canelo being on the decline in consideration here. Canelo tends to fade a little bit late and stuff like that, so I'm not trying to ignore any of these factors. I'm not trying to ignore that Canelo has not been in with a guy this skilled in a long time. I'm not trying to ignore what Mayweather did to Canelo. I'm not trying to ignore how Canelo's looked in his last couple of fights. All things to take into consideration. But all kind of question marks. We don't know if this weight is going to be too much for Bud. We don't know if Canelo's really on the decline. Maybe he's just kind of fighting down to his level of opposition. We just don't really know, and we're not going to find out until these two guys get in the ring on September 9th, and I think that's what makes it intriguing. But again, coming from a fight fan, I'm pumped. I love Bud. I don't want to say I love Canelo, but I don't really hate Canelo, and I do think Canelo is a pound-for-pound guy, even though I do think he's been cherry-picking for quite some years now and avoiding Benavidez and shit. So, again, I do think there's a lot of things to take into consideration here, but as a fight fan, I'm pumped about this one. As kind of like a boxing and a legacy fan and things like that, I'm not the biggest fan of somebody jumping up, skipping a weight class, jumping 2 weight classes to their 6th weight class at 38 or whatever years old and taking on a pound-for-pound guy. I just feel like it's a setup for one of those things where if it all goes wrong and Canelo just, puts him to sleep like similar to like an Amir Khan type of thing where it's like Bud's doing good, whatever, and then all of a sudden, bang. And it's like, oh, what the fuck were we thinking? With this guy jumping up 1 or 2 weight classes to take on a guy that punches like this when he doesn't have a great chin. I could see that happening, and that's an anticlimactic ending, right? Because that's just going to be, we're going to say, Canelo shouldn't have fought this guy. This guy's way too small for him. Canelo's fighting guys that are jumping up 2, 3 weight classes to their 6th division and shit like that. It's going to kind of put that back on Canelo, and it's going to do the same for Bud. It's going to be like, this was dumb. What were we thinking? Why did we want this guy to jump up, skip weight classes and go all the way up to this weight to fight this guy? What the fuck did we think was going to happen? So I'm not trying to write this off at all. I think both of these guys are live depending on if Canelo really is fading, depending on if Bud really can handle this weight and things like that. So I think there's a lot of intangible things here that we're really not going to know for sure until they get in the ring and fight. But at the end of the day, I got to say, man, I think Bud's going to be up on the scorecards, and I think Canelo's going to wind up stopping him late. So take that how you want it. Peace.